Hi everyone, welcome to the Tony Tan podcast show. My name is Tony Tan and I bring the future into the present. Today, cybersecurity attacks are escalating in Singapore. This is made worse with the coronavirus situation. When people are working from home, coupled with a deep recession as well as the rise of smart devices in our home, it becomes a very serious problem for all of us. What do we need to do to protect ourselves against cyber threats? That is where our next guest comes in to share with us some of these tips, where we'll discuss about the cybersecurity landscape and how to protect ourselves better. He is the Vice President of CISA, a think tank for cybersecurity and national defense. He's also the Vice President for Channels for Asia Pacific, Africa and Middle East for TrendMicro, a global leading player in the cybersecurity space. His previous role as the country manager for both Singapore and Indonesia allows him to grow the TrendMicro revenue from strength to strength, and he's managing over 80 account managers. He's also one of Asia Pacific top 50 cybersecurity influencers. So let us welcome David Seah to our show so that we can all learn from him and hear his views. David, thank you for taking your time off your busy schedule to join us today. You are known for so many things. You are a leader, you are an influencer, and you have so many cybersecurity certifications out there that I just couldn't track. And I don't think I can introduce every one of them.
All right. Yeah.
And it is so interesting today. You look at the cybersecurity landscape. Cybersecurity attacks are still making headlines. Just a couple of days ago, we saw a very interesting cybersecurity attack on the New Zealand Stock Exchange. They have been down. I think they are on the fourth day right now. They are brought down by cybersecurity attacks. And there was this article about the Malaysian Navy. Some of this sensitive information has been leaked online. State secrets like that could be shared in the dark web. And not too long, of course, in Singapore, we have the very infamous episode about the hack on Singapore Health. So as we can see, these cybersecurity threats are getting very, very serious. And I want to know what are your views about these trends, these security attacks, and the security scene today. How are they like? And could you just educate us and share with us your thoughts about the cybersecurity scene today?
Well, Tony, I think cybersecurity really is a very important aspect of all enterprises and all commercial businesses out there. As we become more digitalized and everything becomes online, the criminals also want to go online as well. I think it's an easier buck for them, right? Getting somebody attacked with ransomware and just collecting money in bitcoins that is totally untraceable. I mean, that kind of value proposition to the cyber criminal underground is really just too big to be ignored. And we see a massive uptick of criminal gangs that actually has been doing a lot of all these nefarious cyber activities over the dark web and attacking companies, holding them ransom, mostly for economic gain, sometimes for political gain, right? Because they just want to make a point in an activity of what we call hacktivism. And I think that today we will see that digitalization has really overtaken the events already, and even cyber criminals have even digitalized to stay ahead.
Yeah, David, you know what? Sometimes I think cybersecurity crimes actually outweighs the numbers of the crimes that our police force is solving by a factor of X times. A lot of these cybersecurity crimes is not made known to the public, right? What we see is what's reported in the newspaper. And I feel that these cybersecurity crimes are a lot more easier for criminals to access compared to traditional robbery or the traditional crimes that we see that we are familiar with in the past. The interesting thing to wonder, after we spend so much effort in cybersecurity, are we winning this battle or are we losing this battle against cybercrime? How come we spend so much investment on cybersecurity, and sometimes you still see some of these attacks making headlines in the news? It's also interesting to hear what's your perspective about some of these things that we are seeing out there. What's your take about the state of cybersecurity today?
Well, certainly, I would say that we are doing pretty well, right? Especially in the more developed economies around the world, and especially among the larger enterprises like the banks, the government departments. A lot of money and a lot of expertise has been invested into doing more cybersecurity awareness, into increasing the cybersecurity posture within organizations as well. And because of this, I think today we are keeping the criminals at bay, especially in the more high-end organizations. SMEs, of course, is a little bit of a different issue. I think awareness and the ability and the willingness to invest in cybersecurity is still a little bit on the low-end side. I believe over time, that is the side of commercial industries that need to catch up, the SME side. Whereas the enterprises, I think, well, we are really, really well defended there.
David, the interesting thing that I've read somewhere in an article, it says that cybersecurity is kind of like a tombstone story. It's when something happened, right? And then you tell yourself that I should have done this. I should have invested in the people. I should have invested in the process and the technology. But by then it's too late. We all know our crown jewels are in our data. What has already been exfiltrated, all right? The damage is already done.
Yeah.
So currently, how do you see the COVID-19 pandemic? How is this playing out in the cybersecurity scene? What is the impact that this pandemic has on the cybersecurity landscape today?
I think because now, a lot of home users has brought their laptops home, they are working from home. A lot of their digital activities that they used to do out from the office is now actually back in the comforts of their home. It also means that they have left the digital fortress that has been built by corporates over the years. What I mean by the digital fortress, Tony, is that corporates have invested a lot in their corporate ring fencing to build a moat, a wall, dump alligators around the company, right? To prevent cyber criminals from hopping across those alligators, jumping across the moat, climbing the walls, right? That's what I call the digital fortress of the enterprise.
Right.
But as you bring your work out to home, you don't have that kind of defense, that exists anymore at home. And I think cyber criminals are taking advantage of that. And another point is that cyber criminals today, they thrive on phishing, spear phishing, which is crafting specialized topics so that people will click on emails, open up nefarious attachments, and therefore get infected. COVID-19 actually provides another topic for them to craft. They can talk about COVID-19 vaccines, prevention, special news, right? Things that actually cause home users to inadvertently click on attachments and get themselves infected. So I would say overall that we have seen a rise in the number of attacks due to COVID-19, but mainly because end users or office users have left the comforts of the digital fortress at home.
Yes, David, I think that is interesting. But however, today, so many of us who are working from home, the question is how many of us have that kind of fundamental knowledge of cybersecurity? For myself, for example, I am well protected because I know about cybersecurity and I know about some of this hygiene. But that doesn't mean my family members are aware of it, like or my mom or even my helper. And security, you are as strong as your weakest link. If one of your family members' devices is compromised, then I guess you could compromise your home security. Isn't that true?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm in cybersecurity and I feel exactly the same way, right? As I go home and I just start to figure out, hey, should I set up my home to be as secure as the environment that I have in the office? How do I do that? And you start to think about, hey, the detection and the response and the kind of protection options that you have at home, right? Actually, there's not really a lot out there in terms of consumer-based home protection.
Right.
So if you're talking about defending users at home, right, I think cyber criminals are having it a little bit easy, right, penetrating the home user.
I think they are really having a field day today, actually.
Yeah, very, very easy time.
Yeah, and just the other day, I was looking at the devices that I have at home. I was so surprised, David. I just realized that I have like 26 devices that's connected to the internet at one time. This proliferation of the Internet of Things, or otherwise known as smart devices, are kind of like mushroom over the last couple of years. And today, There are so many devices made by so many makers from so many countries, you just couldn't keep track. You know, we have not given a second thought. It's so easy for us just to add a device to our home without even thinking about the security implications or what it could cost us. Your home, there's now so many ways they can come into your place. Last time, if you have just one lock, you can lock the gate, right? Now imagine you have 30 gates with 30 different locks that you need to secure. And that is going to be very, very, very challenging. So what are your thoughts about how, people like us and how our home users are able to take some easy steps, easy wins, for us to secure their environment so that they can have some peace of mind in today's COVID world?
I think when it comes to securing a device or securing a home, whether you're in the office or at home, well, one thing you can do is really invest a lot in cybersecurity technology, but that's not really an option when you're at home, I guess,
Right.
yeah, because as I mentioned, there is a lack of options for home protection.
Right.
You can't be bringing that gigantic corporate device back home, right,
Right.
to do your kind of cybersecurity protection that you have. So overall, I think the two basic hygiene factors that I always like to advocate is to keep your software updated, because there's a lot of security loopholes, what we call vulnerabilities that exist, that software vendors or software operating system providers keep patching. So do keep your devices' software updated by patching them regularly, especially when you see please update your device now, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very tempting to say let's update later and
Yes.
forget about it. Just do it as soon as you can.
Right.
And I think secondly is already mentioned before, right? Spear phishing awareness. That is something that we have to be very cautious about. If we were to sort of look at the studies that's been done all over the world, even including here in Singapore, I think majority, and that's more than 50% of all people who take spear phishing tests actually would not be able to identify every spear phishing email that is thrown at them. So I think caution is not sufficient, but without caution will certainly be hacked. So exercise caution in opening email attachments or clicking on unknown hyperlinks that is emailed to you.
Right. I would like just to build on that. I read a report somewhere by Singapore security agencies. Only 4% of Singaporeans are able to identify a phishing attack. And that's a serious statistics, David. That's dangerous.
Yeah, it's serious. I think it also is, but I don't think we should take that into a very alarming context, yeah? Because sometimes just like we take A levels, we take PSLE, O levels, sometimes if that year the exam is very hard, the failure rate will be very high, right?
Right.
So I would say that generally, I wouldn't say 4% is that common a statistic in spear phishing tests, in my personal opinion. I would say maybe 50-60% of people might miss out every single thing, and that would be the more common type kind of spear phishing that you throw out. And if you talk about specially crafted spear phishing emails, right? Basically, if it's so specially crafted, there's no way you can get out of it, right? If this guy knows you so well, the hacker, knows you so well, they craft a topic that is so intimate to your heart, that they use personal details that you can identify with. You might think that it is a legitimate email from a legitimate friend, and you will just click on it, isn't it? So I think if somebody really wants to craft something very specialized, right, most likely you will get hit.
Yeah, and that brings us to another point about social engineering. And social media is so big today because our data is out there in social media. I think for people to triangulate and attack is a lot easier because data is so readily available. So I hear you. You have been talking about two very important things that we can immediately execute, low-hanging fruits, easy wins. The first thing is to make sure that we update our systems regularly, be it on your smartphone or be it on your desktop, right? Update the operating system. And the other one is to be cautious, especially when you are receiving an email. Do not just click like that, right? Be very careful of what you click and which website that you go to. Because when things are too good to be true, it probably is. So the thing is that we need to be very, very cautious. And once we click on the wrong email or the wrong website and the malicious software gets implanted into our system, we will have an extremely hard time in getting rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And they can be so persistent that, like I have a friend who works from home, and when he gets infected, he's been trying all sorts of methods, right, to get rid of this infection. Even though he's got antivirus installed, he can still see his mouse moving, right, without him touching the laptop. So there's only one thing that is left to do, right? In situations like this, you just have to reformat the whole device, and just make sure that everything is cleaned, reinstalled. Yeah. But I would say, today, the internet is a dirty place. The world of the cyberspace is a space that we do need to tread with caution. True, it does hold a lot of knowledge. It does facilitate our work from home. It does support digitalization, but we just have to be aware that there are crooks out there, there are criminals out there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So while I think all our attentions are so focused on fighting the physical Corona-19 pandemic, we need to be very aware that there's a second type of virus that's out there. The cyber virus that is used in the attacks on our environment and our computing system that's happening. We should not take our mind off this very serious threat because the damage that it can do to us is as significant as the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly.
Right.
And I don't see, I see a lot of corporates and I see a lot of governments being cognizant of that fact as well. Anecdotally, cybersecurity budgets have never been affected in spite of COVID. I do know that, of course, in order to combat COVID, a lot of companies need to scale down their operations. Governments need to redirect funding, right, to COVID relief, like job support and stuff like that. But in spite of this, cybersecurity was still, luckily, by majority of organizations and governments, been seen as an essential spend.
So today, David, another very interesting statistics for corporates, SMBs, and the organizations out there, including government, they want to be protected. Everybody's journey is different depending on their maturity stage. But it's getting harder because there are two things, right? First, the lack of cybersecurity personnel and qualified personnel. And the second thing is around the incentive. There's always incentive to do more bad than incentive to do good. So it's kind of like tilted. So what will your advice be and what will your recommendation be for corporates who wants to in-house their cybersecurity, or should they just outsource it?
Well, Tony, I believe that the insource versus outsource decision pretty much depends on the state of cybersecurity technology and the state of cybersecurity services available out on the market. If you ask me, I started in cybersecurity relatively late in 2012, right? During those days, 2012, even then, it was just a short 8 years ago. We see that there is the technology, right, that is diffracted, and technologies are maybe separated into endpoint technologies, network technologies for cyber defense, which is actually very diverse. But today we see integrated technologies that can be integrated across the endpoint and the network, which means that you can correlate intelligence and correlate information, right, across both endpoints and networks, which makes it easier for you to insource nowadays.
I see.
So the technology landscape has changed quite a fair bit that allows for insourcing. Progressively, I see that companies, if they want to do their own cybersecurity, it makes much more sense today because of SaaS, because of integration of both network and endpoints. Yeah,
I would really like to focus on that word that you just used, technology. The way you put it, it comes across technology as an augmentation, as a force multiplier to cybersecurity teams today. And technology does play a big part in allowing us to automate some of these tasks, probably to do more with less. Wouldn't you agree, David?
Yeah, of course. I think like over the years, we see that the alerts that has been built up because of cybersecurity breaches or cybersecurity incidents have actually escalated quite a fair bit. And these alerts could be differentiated into black, white or gray, which means they are either bad or they are either good, or gray means you don't know whether they are good and bad. And the last one is really very problematic for a lot of organizations who insource, because as you mentioned, there is just so much of a problem, right, in getting good cybersecurity stuff today that if you want to sort of investigate what are all those gray alerts, it's very, very difficult to do so. So technologies that help you reduce all those gray noises, we call them increasing the fidelity of your alerts is a very important topic in cybersecurity today.
Wow, I learned a new word, David, fidelity for cybersecurity. Thank you so much for the education. The word fidelity in the past have always been identified with audio files, but now it can apply to cybersecurity as well, right?
Exactly. We call it high fidelity alerts, which means that it's very clear, very crisp, very precise, right? So if you know that it's either a black alert or a white alert, and you reduce the number of gray alerts.
Yeah. Especially in a country like Singapore, where we are always constantly strained and challenged to find the right resources and finding the right talents that allow us to optimize our operations. I do think that technology has a big part to play as a developed nation. And that brings me to the next topic, David. We know that the digital landscape is going through so much changes, and we are seeing the rise of 5G, augmented reality, virtual reality, orbital satellites, and of course the biggest buzzword, artificial intelligence. And it's not just the rise of this technology, it's also the convergence of this technology today. They're all coming together. It's like a tsunami of technology. The world is going through changes at a very, very rapid rate. I mean, it's non-linear. What's your take about some of this technology that's coming our way? And the reason why I ask is because a lot of people have fear about where technology is going. Are they going to solve problems for us, or are they going to introduce more problems? So, as a technology leader for so many years, David, across so many organizations, I really want to hear, what's your opinion on where technology is heading today?
I think digital innovations is here to stay. It has always happened. It has always been with us. Technology and progress is something that as a human race we cannot ignore. And as you can see, we have evolved so much over the years in terms of digitalization. Computers have gotten a lot faster. Software has gotten a lot better. The use of cybersecurity software has actually gotten a lot easier as well. And the use of artificial intelligence has also increased the kind of fidelity that you can receive from cybersecurity alerts too. So overall, because we are the inventors of technology ultimately, I don't think it will in any way reduce the raison d'etre of human existence or even the workforce too. There's no reason why we will invent something that will displace ourselves. We will always invent things that make our life better. And technology, since I've started work in the early 90s, has actually made my life a lot better. I'm saying that maybe perhaps I'm biased. I work in the technology sector, but if you look at other sectors as well, right? Technology has also helped a lot of people make their work a lot more efficient. Technology has also gave people a lot more time, free time, because all the mundane work has been mundane and repetitive work, in fact, had been automated. So overall, I just felt that the progress of technology today, and even those new technologies that you mentioned, the controversial one is artificial intelligence. A lot of naysayers are saying, hey, AI is going to replace the workforce.
Yes.
But I have another take on it. I think AI is going to supplement our lifestyle, and AI is going to supplement the expertise that the human brain has in filtering away all the mundane, repetitive stuff. As human beings, we still finally make the final decision. Ultimately, I think it is going to be much easier in the workforce for future generations because of AI.
So, David, the way you look at it, your position at AI is more of an enabler. It augments what humanity can do, right? It allows us to free our time so that we can, unleash the creative side of us, so that we can meet the aspirations that we want. And also, it's very interesting, David, because we hear people talking about AI is here to replace everything, to replace job and stuff like that. But you look deeper, you look at how all of us that's living today, we are surrounded by AI every day. From the day we wake up, we get notifications, we get, we get a Grab, we book a Grab, we find the right driver, we have GPS to make sure that we go to the location at the fastest speed, and we go on Amazon and we buy something. There's recommendation engine that tells us what is the things that we will like and what would be the best option for us. And everything is laid out for us with AI. And if you look at all these social media companies, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Google or Twitter or LinkedIn, every one of them is an AI organization. And everything that we do inside is regulated or managed by AI. So can you imagine there is a day that the AI is no longer there? Is it possible that we can go back to a day that's that we don't have access to these two in our pockets right now.
Exactly.
I think that we
It's
will
like
totally
saying
slow
that,
down.
yeah, it's like saying that, hey, we are going back to the days where there's no handphone. I think AI would be that ubiquitous. It will be everything, it will be everywhere, and it will help us. It will not replace us.
Yeah, David, I understand why sometimes people have this perception about technologies and technologies are controversial. I think that's because of their very limited understanding sometimes. But who could blame them? If you look at all these stories that's shaped by Hollywood, the likes of Terminator and the likes of Avengers, and you look at Tony Stark, I mean, this AI can almost do anything and solve every problem. But the actual use case of AI today that is in production that we see every day in our life, even those that social media is using, is actually a very small part of that kind of AI. It's called artificial narrow intelligence. And they are very, very far away from what this Hollywood is showing. Do you think that if we are able to provide education to the people out there about what is the reality of AI, that people then can understand how to use this technology to optimize their life for the better?
Yeah, definitely. I think the more that people know what AI is, the more people would start to appreciate its benefits. And of course, I guess there's a lot of startups today in the area of AI, and even startups that actually are not specifically in what we call deep tech, not in the area of developing AI technology, also leverages that as well. So it's going to be very omnipresent. It's just going to help us. I don't see it in a way being a threat to anybody's job. Maybe in the short term, there might be some restructuring, right, as a result of some jobs having to be rescoped to supplement the AI intelligence. But otherwise, I don't see it being very much of a detriment. In fact, it's just going to be an overall benefit for everybody, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, yeah, in my opinion, yeah.
So, David, that's really interesting. I think the important thing that we're talking about here is clarity. And when you have clarity, you're able to see what are the possibilities that all this technology can bring to us. Clarity is one area, but understanding and doing is two different things. What sort of mindsets do you think our audience should adopt for digital innovation? Do you think it's important to adopt a growth mindset that allows them to evolve in this fast-changing environment?
Well, I think you mentioned that the environment is fast changing. I think that it is evolutionary right now because of the pandemic.
Right.
Everybody is moving towards digitalization in one form or another. Even our young kids today have to study on e-learning platforms rather than to go to school and have face-to-face learning. Of course, now we've reached a stage, luckily, where the COVID-19 has been brought under control that kids can go back to school. But the last couple of months have been a great, massive national experiment in digital e-learning.
Right.
It's proven that it's possible.
Right.
Psychologically, I don't know what's the long-term impact.
Right.
It's still too short to tell.
Yes.
But it's proven that you can work from home. It's proven that you can study at home. And I feel that overall, right, this shift in the landscape to a more digitalized world actually has freed up a lot more time for everybody. It's not to say that we've become less efficient. I would say that we can do the same things in a lot less time.
Right.
And also, I work in a traveling job. I need to fly a lot before COVID-19. But right now, actually, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams, or through WebEx, I can meet up people, and people are more willing, culture-wise, right? And also business ethics-wise, or even business practice-wise, more acceptable to an online meeting, because that's the only choice left, isn't it?
Right.
Because of that, we free up a lot more time to be more efficient, to do more things. But one thing that I find, right, maybe as lacked is that face-to-face interactive, that human touch. I think we need to revisit how we can reforge that link over the internet, over Zoom, over WebEx.
Right.
Yeah, that's the part that I think is missing.
David, we spoke a little about digital innovations earlier. We spoke a bit about the convergence of technology. And there's this tsunami of change that's coming our way. Organizations and leadership is also changing. Nothing is ever constant. There's a lot of talks about digital leadership today. People call it leadership 2.0. What sort of leadership skills do you think we need to adopt to harness these changes, to manage this chaos, to get us an organization to the next stage. A lot of leaders in the SME space and even corporates and enterprises need some of this insight into some of these new skills and mentality that they need so that they are not only able to survive, but to thrive in today's disruptive world.
If you look at the world of self-help books, right? We have all these self-help books from MBA or from YouTube, or even you just go to the library. You have all these books on how to be a better leader, how to be a better communicator, how to think more out of the box. Actually, all this were written pre-COVID. When COVID comes, I think a lot of all this concepts can be applied, but a lot has also been dispelled because they become a lot more irrelevant as people start to interface more online.
Right.
So there's no right answer right now as people are grappling, right, to find out how they can do better in the digital world. But in my personal opinion, in the last couple of months, I feel that we need to learn to live in a two-dimensional world. And what I mean by the two-dimensional world is, right now, we have the luxury of interacting face to face, and we have body language that helps us. We can sense whether the counterparty is comfortable or uncomfortable. But how do you sense that into a two-dimensional world?
Right.
And we have to adjust the lighting, right? In the three-dimensional world, and we see each other in the three-dimensional world. How do we look in the two-dimensional world, such as our facial expressions can convey the kind of message that we want to give to our staff, the kind of direction, the kind of guidance that we want to give? I believe there are very subtle changes, and there are very subtle differences, and so subtle that a lot of people are not realizing how they can transform their organizational leadership and strategic expertise that they had in the pre-COVID world into the digital world.
David, there's so much articles around speed, agility, clarity, diversity, even empathy. Some of these skills allow us to transcend and manage all this chaos that's going forward. What's your take? Do you think empathy is important, especially in this time of change and disruption? Empathy to care? Do you empathize in your organization, especially since your organizations are going through so much changes at this point of time?
Yeah, I believe so. I think especially now, right, with the pandemic, I think the number one concern is economic concern. How the economy is going to shift, most likely downwards, definitely downwards, in fact.
Right.
But how would it therefore impact everybody? So it is a question on everybody's mind, right? Will they be relevant in the post-COVID world? Will the company continue to exist in the post-COVID world? So I believe that as leaders, right, the organization management need to be a lot more empathetic of the insecurities that staff are feeling nowadays. I believe that good leaders, and I've seen many of such, actually make a very, very strong effort to reassure everybody that the business is going to continue as usual. It will restructure, it will change to maybe be a little bit more post-COVID world relevant, but everybody's reason for existence, everybody's relevance, right, in the organization will still remain, maybe in a little bit of a different fashion. But good leaders, so far I've seen, have made a very, very proactive effort to communicate this point down to their staff.
I think empathy, and right now you mentioned about execution with purpose and clarity is important, because people need leaders to be clear where they are going. And this allows the whole organization to pivot better when the clarity is there. And another interesting trend that we are seeing in digital leadership today is that more and more people, maybe that's because of the advent of social media, people don't follow companies as much as before. People follow people. Do you think in today's age of digital leadership, should leaders focus more on their personal branding and outreach on social media? What's your take on that, David?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I And it's controversial because large companies or even small companies spend tons and tons of money on branding their products and branding
Right.
their company profile,
Right.
So we buy things because we like a brand.
Right.
The brand is obviously damn rock solid, right?
Yep.
This stand probably costs $140
Right.
because it comes from a very reputable company. I think it's $140 because I have the same one. But you can actually go on the web and buy a $9 one, right? Yeah,
Yes.
but this feels so good and the brand itself resounds. But the next other thing that I researched is that actually if I go out and see an influencer online saying, hey, they love this brand and it's great, right? It actually solidifies the other 50% of the decision making. So I'm tempted to say that people buy from people, but in reality, people buy from brands and people in equal quantities of influence, in my
Right.
personal opinion.
Right.
Because the brand itself gives me the assurance that it is a quality product. The person's endorsement give me the assurance that it is a usable product that is likable by a human being. Because hey, do we all trust corporates? No, right? We
Yeah.
don't. We don't trust that big corporate machinery out there. So in the consumer world, this is very evident. But I find progressively in the B2B world, if you're selling enterprise products or commercial products that is not consumer based, because B2B means you're selling from business to business, progressively there is also, in my opinion, the people who are not just looking at the brand of that particular product, they're also looking at, hey, is the businessman conducting this business a reputable guy? Right, on the assumption that this guy joins the company because he finds the company to be a reputable company too. So the digital brand of a person becomes a lot more important today, even if you're in the B2B world, because I know that people buy from people, even though 50% of the decision is people buying the brand. But in the B2B world, right, progressively we see that people are also buying from people in over and on top of the brand itself.
Wow, just a few years ago, it was all about brands. But even that, as you're saying, 50% is a big jump, even from previous perceptions of branding. I think there's a big shift that's going on right now. The percentage might even tilt further in the future. So, to be a digital leader, especially in the world of social media, the world of digital marketing, what do you think about communication skills? Do you think it's important that leadership learns skills to up their presentation skills, especially in the world of virtual presentations, where they need to give a lot more keynotes, they need to do a lot more influencing, they need to bring more clarity to the people in virtual town halls and things like that. Do you think communication skills have to be upgraded to become a good digital leader today?
I think so, right? As I mentioned, sometimes you can sense sincerity by interfacing with a person face to face, but it's really, really very difficult to sense the sincerity in the two-dimensional world of the internet or through the Zoom conferences. So the only other way that we can is really the projection of voice, the projection of sincerity through speech, the use of words that actually convey your sincerity down to your colleagues, to your friends. I think even on WhatsApp or even on the instant messaging. Now today, instant messaging like Telegram, like WhatsApp, even Zoom has instant messaging as well. Actually allows you to communicate directly to the counterparty, and the counterparty is it just pops up on your handphone. There's no way they can ignore it, right?
Right.
Yeah, and when they've read, you know that there's a double tick to know that you have read.
Right.
So you need to be able to convey the kind of communicate and convey the kind of emotions and sincerity that you want to put across. The use of emoticons, the use of the internet language, right? Which is not truly a young kids language. I think the internet belongs to everybody, young or old, right? We need to learn how to communicate in text form much, much more effectively.
Wow. So, David, you're right to talk about text communication. It's a whole new ball game. How people text, you can actually see. You don't actually see, but you can sense, because they will have to pause. And through this pause, you're able to understand the subtle thoughts behind the person who's communicating with you. So it's interesting to see these dimensions because the subtle signs behind it are so different.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's very, very subtle, but if you think about it, right, Tony, if I am talking to you and you just ask me a question and I said, right?
Right.
Thinking, right? It's just like when you are on instant messaging, you can say David Xia is typing.
Right.
5 minutes later, David Xia is still typing.
Right.
Then stop typing. And 5 minutes later, David Xia is still typing, but never send out any message, right? How does that convey to you, right? Isn't that the same equivalent of what we call the pregnant pause, right?
Right.
In a face-to-face communication. So instant messaging, the name suggests it has to be instant, right? The first thing that comes to your mind, type it out and send it. But of course, before you send it, scan it for vulgarities, right?
Right. It's interesting to look at that point because a lot of times we're all focusing on virtual presentations, body language, the non-verbals. But I think it's also as leaders, it's also important that we need to be careful about the way we type, the speed that we type, because people can read all these cues.
Exactly.
Of our communication.
Yeah. Are you thinking too hard on giving me the answer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might give away your intention accidentally.
Boss, is there going to be a retrenchment?
You pause for a while.
Type.
Oh,
of course not, right?
Yeah.
Then how would that read, right? Yeah.
Yes. I think this is very valuable insight, right, for all of us.
Yeah.
To be more mindful about all these platforms and how we communicate well on them in this digital world. David, do you think I can ask you a personal question? Is that all right for you?
Do I have a choice?
You actually have
just
a
go
choice.
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, is there a time, you have been such a successful leader for so long, Everybody looks out to you, David. Who doesn't know David Xia? He's a successful guy. Everything is going on for him. His career can go no wrong. Is there a time where you have felt that maybe things haven't been so smooth sailing for you? Or maybe there was a time where you felt really down? What was your emotional state at that time and how do you come out from it?
Well, we just go past the election so that, I had a sob story thing, don't really sound so fancy to me anymore. Yeah? Right. I don't think everybody cares whether you had a sad background or you grew up in a humble background anymore. Yeah, so I'm not going to say that. But I would say that one thing that sort of impacted me and made me work a lot harder was the 1998 financial crisis. I decided to go for my MBA right, just before the financial crisis. And during the crisis, I was in UK. I had a lot of classmates. They were suffering very badly because they did not change their local currency into British pounds. Like I did, I changed everything that I need, right, in the British pound. So with devaluation of local currencies and all, I wasn't that much affected. But I saw a lot of people got affected. And having started work in 1994, right, that's when if you're a programmer, you can just snap your finger and get a job anytime.
Right.
I was really sort of humbled a lot when I come back. I sent out 140 resumes, and I only get 2 or 3 interviews, right? Finally, it spent 2-3 months before you finally get a job. And that's when I realized that, things can get bad really fast, really, really big time. So when the sun shines, make hay, and do be thankful of the career that you have, do be thankful of the job you have, do be thankful of the colleagues that you have. You cannot choose the job sometimes, right? You can, because you can change job, but you can't change all the time. You cannot choose your colleagues. You cannot choose the products you sell. That's one of my favorite anecdotes to tell all my colleagues. If you believe in your product, sell it hard. If you don't believe in the product, then you better change the job. Yeah, because you have to treasure what you have. Yeah, because there's no point, right? Actually, if you don't believe the product, you can't sell it, then you're just holding everybody back. So I would say that this particular incident in 1998 actually sort of changed me a lot, and it actually changed my mental model. It's not just changed my mindset, it changed my entire mental model. We exist to do a job, right? We exist to serve. And even though we can choose where we want to serve, what we want to serve as, but the economy sometimes doesn't allow us to have that much flexibility in the choices. So be thankful for the job, and if I have the job, and I'm in the job, I believe that I should give it my everything. I should be serious about it, and I should be more sincere, right, with my colleagues, and I should always empathize with my subordinates.
Wow. So during that time when you were going through this 100 and how many? 40?
140 resumes. And I tell you, to remind myself, I still kept the hard disk. It's not a portable hard disk. It's from, I rip out the hard disk from my 486 computer, because in 1998, it's a 486 computer, right? Yeah. So when it's time to throw away the computer, I rip out the hard disk. I still kept that hard disk because I want to remind myself that, hey, things can really go south very fast, and things can really go bad really, really big time.
David, one thing's for sure. If I need help on writing a CV, I know who to turn to.
Maybe not me, right? Because I wrote 140 CVs and I only get 3 responses.
David, as you know, during that dark period, what kept you going? What was that resilience in you? What was that attitude that in you that have helped you to see that light at the end of the tunnel?
I think it was really the fact that my parents actually, were very supportive as well, right? They actually had a lot of help, and they don't really pressurize to say, hey, why are you not having a job after you come back from your studies? They just let me, be myself. I think that's great because it kept me going. I just wanted to be a more. I just want to keep persevering to look for a job, because I know that if I keep trying, finally I will get it.
So it was perseverance, I guess. Which is
Family
such
support.
Family
Family support, I think, is important. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think your proximity or our proximity is important. Having the right proximity in supporting you through difficult times is really an asset. And you also mentioned a little bit about the 140 CVs. That's definitely some perseverance there. David. I'd like to congratulate you on your perseverance.
Yeah.
Right.
Copy and paste helps a lot.
Yeah. It pays off. It pays off. David, if there's one sentence that governs your life, that is central to your living, your success, whether it's personal or in work, what should that sentence be, or what would that philosophy be?
I think a lot of my colleagues actually hate me or remember me because of this, right? I keep telling them, hey, damned if you don't, and damned if you do, right? And this applies a lot to the sales people who work for me, because when I was a country manager in my previous career, actually I have both sales and technical people working for me. And I always say, hey, for those people who are doing the sales, if you don't commit the numbers, we are not going to have a good impression of you. So damned if you don't commit.
All right.
If you commit the numbers and a quarter or two later you don't deliver on those numbers, right? So damned if you do commit but you don't deliver too. So
right.
The ultimate baseline story over here that I'm trying to convey is damned if you do, damned if you don't, meaning, hey, if there's a job to do, maybe we should just get it done, isn't it? No complaints.
Right, that's an interesting statement. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. I think in life, it's all about balance. You cannot go too much to one side, and there's certain risks that you want to take. If you want to succeed in life, you cannot be in a safe haven all the time. You won't be able to live the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, David.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us on that.
I'm not so sure that my staff liked it.
So, in these dark times of COVID-19 pandemic, every day when you open and read the newspaper, there's nothing but bad news and bad articles. What is that one thing that you got going for you, that you have benefited from COVID-19? Because I think at the end of the tunnel, there's always some light. What do you think, David?
I think for me, I always like to see on the bright side of things, right? The glass half full instead of the glass half empty. This COVID period actually gave me an opportunity to work from home. I've always wanted to see how working from home is like. Having experienced it in the last couple of months, I find that it can be if with the right attitude and with the right techniques, right? It can be very productive. You can deliver a lot more stuff. You can outreach to a lot more people, which is important in the line of job that I do. Because today, the digital travel is accepted as a business practice. You travel digitally to the Middle East, you travel digitally to Africa, to Australia, New Zealand, whereas previously you had to fly 8 to 10 hours to visit these places. And even within Southeast Asia, right, you can just, your customers, your partners, your business associates, just a phone call away or a video call away. And it's so much efficient, and we maintain so much more close contact with our business associates today. So I benefited a lot because I am able to increase the number of touch points digitally, whereas previously everybody expects you to be face to face, so that you. But hey, there's so much of business travel you can do right in a certain quarter, not just because of budget, but time constraints as well. Imagine the time it takes for you to get to the airport, to check in, to take from the airport to the business travels, check into the hotel, navigate the traffic jams in some countries where traffic jams are very rampant. And you, at most, I think, can only do 2 or 3 engagements a day. But nowadays, I think business engagements, you can actually multiply it by a lot more fold. So in that way, I benefited a lot from the COVID-19. And secondly, I think I learned a lot too. I have educated myself on a lot more digital branding kind of capabilities. I've educated myself in a lot more digital software. I used to be good at PowerPoint slides. Now I'm excellent.
Wow.
I'm great at Excel now. And I've also learned a new gig, and that is dashboarding, right? Business analytics, right? Because you get a chance to actually touch all these new ways of digital engagement with your business partners, your business associates, and with your colleagues.
Right. So, David, that's interesting for a few reasons. Firstly, thank you very much for being sensitive to climate change by cutting down all your travels. And secondly, I can see a recurring theme about how technology is evolving you, making you a stronger person, making you a lot more productive. And also, you have a growth mentality in terms of taking all these new skills to position yourself for the future. Just like the digital leaders that we are talking about.
Yeah, make hay while the sun shines, right? COVID or no COVID, just continue to make hay. You can't make hay the way you used to. Just, learn a new gig.
Wow, you are adapting very fast and succeeding very well, David. So thank you, David. I think that was wonderful advice, and you have given us so much tips today about cybersecurity, your perspective about the role of digital innovation, not just on society, but on the individuals. And also share the mentalities and skill sets that we need to adopt as digital leaders. And we also know from your personal story that life is not always a bed of roses, right? When the chips are down, what do you need to do to succeed? And in spite of the doom and gloom of COVID-19, there's always something good if you know where to look for.
Definitely, Tony.
Thank you very much, David. You are a true leader, and I thank you again for joining my show, and I'll look forward to catch up with you again very soon.
Thanks. Happy to be on the Tony Tan Show.
Thank you, David. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the Tony Tan podcast and show today. I hope that you find the information useful and you can implement it in your life. If you find this content useful, do subscribe to our channel so that you get updated for some of the new content that's coming your way very, very soon. My name is Tony Tan, and I'm bringing the future into the present. And I look forward to see you in my next show and podcast very soon. Goodbye.